There is a sound at the center of Joker that is more disturbing than any act of violence in the film. And it is the sound of a man laughing while he is in agony. Arthur Fleck suffers from a neurological condition that forces him to laugh, uncontrollably, involuntarily, and it seizes him precisely at the worst possible moments. When he is frightened, when he is humiliated, when he is in pain, when every other human being would weep or scream. And the film shows us, again and again, the terrible disjunction of it. The sound of laughter, the universal sign of joy, pouring out of a face contorted with suffering, a body straining and choking against a positivity it did not choose and cannot switch off. Most viewers experience this as a symptom, a piece of medical backstory that explains the character's isolation. I want to argue that it is far more than that. I want to argue that Arthur Fleck's forced, painful, involuntary laughter is the single most precise image in all of contemporary cinema of the condition diagnosed by the philosopher Byung-Chul Han, and that Joker, whatever its director intended, is the mirror in which Han's account of the 21st century soul appears as a human face bent into a smile it cannot stop making. To see why, we have to understand the shift that Han placed at the center of his thought, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it in Arthur's laughing, weeping face. Byung-Chul Han's central move is to say that the model of society we inherited from Michel Foucault is no longer the one we live in. Foucault described the Disciplinary Society, a world organized around prohibition and external command. The world of the prison, the asylum, the barracks, the factory. A world that says to the subject, you must not, you may not, obey. Its power is negative, the power of the no, working through walls and rules and the threat of punishment. And it produces specific pathologies, specific kinds of broken people. Above all, the madman and the criminal, the ones who transgress the prohibition and are locked away. And Han's argument is that this world has largely given way to another, which he calls the Achievement Society. And the Achievement Society does not command through prohibition at all. It commands through positivity. It does not say you must not. It says you can. Yes, you can. You are free. You are unlimited. You can be anything, achieve anything, become anything, be happy, be positive, be your best self. And this sounds like liberation, the lifting of the old repressive no. But Han shows that it is a subtler and more total form of domination. Because the achievement subject, believing itself free, becomes the entrepreneur of itself, its own master and its own slave at once. And it exploits itself, voluntarily, passionately, with no external oppressor needed, driving itself toward achievement and positivity until it collapses. And the pathologies of this society are not the madman and the criminal, but the depressive and the burnout. The subject exhausted from the endless labor of being itself. The subject that has heard you can so many times that when it finally cannot, it shatters. Because there is no one to blame but itself. Now hold that diagnosis up against Arthur Fleck and watch it become flesh. The imperative of the Achievement Society is the imperative to be positive, to smile, to perform happiness. And Arthur's entire existence is organized around the forced production of exactly that sign. When we meet him, his job is to be a clown for hire, a man paid to manufacture joy, to smile, to twirl a sign, to entertain, to radiate a positivity he is contracted to supply. He sits before a mirror and rehearses expressions, and in one unbearable image, he pushes the corners of his own mouth upward with his fingers, physically forcing his face into a smile, manufacturing the positivity his world demands from a face that does not want to make it. He writes in his notebook, in a line that could be an epigraph to Han's entire philosophy, that the worst part of having a mental illness is that people expect you to act as if you do not have one. That is the Achievement Society in a single sentence. The command to perform wellness, to perform functionality, to hide the negativity, to keep smiling, to be the optimized and positive self the world requires, and to do it alone, because your suffering is your private failure to achieve, and his affliction, the involuntary laughter, is this entire imperative driven into his nervous system and turned into a disease. His body has so thoroughly internalized the command to produce the sign of happiness that it produces it against his will at the moments of deepest pain, so that his suffering and the mask of joy over his suffering have become physically inseparable. Arthur Fleck is a man whose body cannot stop obeying the command to be positive, even as that command tears him apart. He is the tyranny of positivity made audible, the forced smile of the Achievement Society given a voice, and the voice is a scream that comes out sounding like a laugh. And notice the crucial thing. The thing that separates Arthur from the pathologies of the older, disciplinary world, because this is where the connection to Han becomes exact. Arthur has no oppressor he can name and fight. The Disciplinary Society gave its victims an enemy, a warden, a wall, a rule, something external to revolt against. Arthur is surrounded by a decaying disciplinary apparatus, the underfunded clinic, the social worker who tells him his therapy and his medication are being cut, the institutions of the old order visibly collapsing around him. But the thing that is actually destroying him is not any of these. It is diffuse, internal, faceless, the ambient command to be happy and functional and positive that comes from everywhere and nowhere, that he has taken so far into himself that his own body enforces it. And so he does what Han says that the achievement subject does. He exploits himself. Look at the body Joaquin Phoenix brought to the role, emaciated, wasted, the spine twisted, the ribs showing, a body that has been consumed, used up, worn down to nothing by the labor of being Arthur, of climbing every day. And the film gives us that climbing as its central visual refrain, the long, punishing staircase that Arthur ascends again and again, exhausted, the Sisyphus of the Achievement Society, always toiling upward toward a self he is told he can become and never reaches. His depression, the flatness, the deadness in him, is precisely Han's diagnosis of the depressive, as the subject worn out from the impossible labor of becoming itself. The one in whom the endless you can has finally curdled into I cannot, and who has no one to blame, and so turns the violence inward upon himself until the day it turns outward instead. There is another dimension of Han's thought that the film stages with quiet devastation, and it is the disappearance of the other. Han argues that the Achievement Society, the society of total positivity and self-reference, expels genuine otherness, the truly different, the real thou that can wound and surprise us, and leaves us trapped in what he calls the hell of the same, unable to have a real encounter, unable to love, because love requires an other, and the other has been eliminated. And Joker gives us this as a hallucination. Arthur has a relationship with a woman, his neighbor, a warm and tender connection that runs through the film as his one thread of human contact, his one experience of being seen and wanted by another person. And then the film reveals, with a cold turn of the camera, that the relationship never happened, that he invented it, that he has been alone the entire time, that the other he loved was a projection cast onto a woman who barely knows him. This is the hell of the same made cinematic. Arthur cannot reach a real other, cannot achieve the encounter that might have saved him. And so his starved psyche manufactures one, hallucinates a thou to fill the unbearable absence, exactly as it manufactures the smile. The achievement subject, sealed in itself, invents the connection it can no longer make. And when the illusion collapses, there is nothing behind it but the same. The room, the isolation, the man alone with the command to be happy. And now we can understand what actually happens when Arthur becomes the Joker, and why the film's own political surface is, in the deepest reading, a beautiful mistake. On the surface, Joker offers a story of revolt. Arthur's violence sparks a movement. The citizens of Gotham don clown masks and rise up against the rich, against the Waynes, against the system. And Arthur becomes their symbol, the face of a rebellion. And this is the Disciplinary Society reading, the Foucauldian, even Marxist reading, in which there is an oppressor, a ruling class, an external enemy. And the answer to suffering is to identify it and rise against it. But Han's diagnosis cuts directly against this. And the film, perhaps without knowing it, dramatizes the cut. Because the whole point of the Achievement Society is that there is no such oppressor, that the violence is systemic and internal, that the subject exploits itself, that there is no warden to overthrow because you are the warden. Arthur's violence is not a revolution. It is the final symptom, the self-exploitation of the burnout subject at last turning outward, the inward-directed violence of depression exploding into the world because it has nowhere else to go. He does not kill out of a political program. He kills out of the accumulated agony of a man who was commanded to smile and could not stop. And the crowd that turns him into a revolutionary symbol has fundamentally misread him, has projected onto his private catastrophe a political meaning it does not have. And in doing so, they perform the last of Han's diagnoses, the Society of Transparency and the viral image, in which a suffering individual is instantly converted into an empty circulating sign, a mask that anyone can wear, drained of the person underneath. The Joker mask spreading across Gotham is Arthur emptied out, made into pure surface, pure image, the exhibition of a face with no interior, the Achievement Society's final trick, which is to take even the eruption of the negativity it repressed and turn it into a shareable, wearable, meaningless positivity, a party, a riot, a brand. I have kept the analysis at a certain distance, but I do not think I can honestly end there. Because the reason this film unsettles so many people, the reason it became a phenomenon and an argument and a fear, is that the mirror it holds up is not aimed at some distant psychotic. It is aimed at us. Most of us will never become the Joker, but most of us know, intimately, the smaller version of Arthur's affliction, the daily labor of producing the smile, the performance of I'm fine, the compulsory positivity of the feed and the workplace, and the endless self-optimization, the exhaustion of being told from every screen that we can be anything, and the private collapse when we cannot. The loneliness that no amount of connection seems to cure, because the connections are with the same and never with a real other. Arthur is a limit case, the point at which the ordinary condition of the achievement subject breaks all the way open. But the condition is ours. And that is why the laughter is so unbearable to hear. It is the sound of the command we all obey, taken to its end. We are all, in smaller ways, laughing when we should be weeping, smiling for the camera of a world that has told us positivity is compulsory, climbing the staircase toward a self we are promised and never reach, exploiting ourselves with no oppressor to blame, hallucinating connection in the hell of the same. Byung-Chul Han wrote the diagnosis. Joker gave it a face, and the face is forcing itself to smile. So this is why Arthur Fleck is the mirror of Byung-Chul Han. And it is not because the film illustrates a theory, which it never set out to do, but because both the philosopher and the film arrived, by different roads, at the same wound in the modern soul. The disciplinary society that Foucault described, with its prohibitions and its walls and its nameable enemies, has given way to a society that commands not obedience, but happiness, not silence, but positivity, not you must, but you can. And this new command has no face to fight, because it works through us, because we have taken it inside and become our own exploiters, smiling, achieving, optimizing, until we burn out or break down or, in the extreme case the film imagines, laugh our way into the abyss. Arthur's forced laughter is that command made flesh, the sign of joy torn from a suffering body, the perfect emblem of a world that has made positivity a tyranny and left us alone with the labor of performing it. He is not a monster from outside the order. He is the order's truest child, the achievement subject at the moment its self-exploitation turns to fire. And when he finally stops fighting the laughter and lets it become his mask, he is not liberated, he is completed. The Burnout Society's pathology wearing the face of joy, dancing down the staircase it once could only climb, where art does not console, it autopsies.